Thanks again for joining us this morning, Tuck. It's great seeing past president of IFAMA able to catch me this morning. Anyways, wanted to ask you a few questions here about your involvement with IFAMA and what got you involved into IFAMA. I see that you were kind of involved early in the onset of IFAMA, like in the 1994, and then also became president in 2009 to 2011. What was that like in the early days of being involved with IFAMA?
Well, the early days, we actually formed a U.S. chapter, and that was right around 2000, and we held a meeting in San Diego and had about 140 people there. And I was actually president of the U.S. chapter. So that was kind of the formative period in terms of involvement. Actually, my banker, Bill Whipple, contacted me and he said, you need to take a look at this IFAMA. In those days, it was IAMA. So we changed it in about 2010. Or a little before that. That was the early involvement, working with Bill Gorman and Jerry Siebert, and of course Catherine's always been a constant throughout. And that was the way we got involved in it. And then that kind of led to a call from Bill Gorman one day who said, how would you like to be president? And I said, Bill, what are you talking about? I'm building a new company and I'm not sure I have the time. And he said, oh, we're going to help you. Don't worry about it. So he said, would you mind doing a study? We have some downtrends going on, and would you do an analysis for us and present it to the board? So I said, yeah, I'd be happy to. So kind of went through every metric involved in IFAMA and determined some of the causes, and that resulted in the board setting up committees to take each of the metrics and determine what's the issue, what can we do to turn it around. And so Mary Shellman took the human side of it, and Mike Bulgy was involved, and John Nichols, and of course Jerry Siebert and Bill Gorman. And at the time, the president, Laszlo, was what we would call the Deputy Undersecretary of Agriculture for Hungary. And he was also the EU committee member, so he was very busy with that. So he asked me if I would take over the project of doing this analysis and kind of managing the committees. And so that resulted then in sort of casting a new direction. We renamed it IFAMA to include the food. We determined that human talent was a very key part of what needed to go forward. And so each of those areas had a recommendation which the board then adopted. So after that vice presidency, then my time came up to in 09, and so that's kind of the history of how I got involved and what happened.
With you being involved, like in 2008, 2009, and the time like with financial crisis that hit America, how would you rate like the challenges that we're seeing today in agriculture to what you would have seen as being president in 2009?
Well, I think right now it's quite different, mainly because of the pandemic, which has caused quite a large number of dislocations, people-wise, manufacturing dislocations, certainly farming dislocations, and so I think it's quite different. In terms of financials for IFAMA, we've always had the issue of keeping it funded properly, and I'm sure that, like any nonprofit, that's always an issue of trying to make that work. So,
With the world conferences that you were involved with being president, you had two that when you during your presidency. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. One in
Because of the earlier one in Budapest, I was involved in that fairly heavily, but Boston was kind of the turnaround conference in terms of presenting a lot of the new ideas, the human talent and how important it is. We even talked then about getting our young students and academics involved in how do we do that, and I think Thad was pretty big on that and spent a lot of time trying to put that together. But we also had some issues where some of our very good members over the years had drifted away, and we tried to bring them back. And Boston was kind of the place where we got them back and got them involved, and they have stayed involved, which I think is a very positive thing. Um, so I think Boston was kind of a key conference. We through the good offices of Ray Goldberg, he was able to bring in some very heavy hitters from around the agribusiness around the world, including Mr. Ning from COFCO in China and other very high level people. So the conference had a very, very high level of participants in it. And all the ideas that the committees from the working with the metrics were presented at that meeting and adopted. So it was a pretty key meeting for us in terms of getting things.
You also were involved with the one in Frankfurt as well.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, Frankfurt was more on sustainability. That was a big issue at the time. And so it was sustainability and a lot on price volatility and value relations and how that works with sustainability, and whether sustainability and productivity were could work together or should work together. And so that was the main focus of that meeting.
You kind of have spoke a little bit about this, but is there any other main areas other than rebranding IFAMA that you would have contributed to help building IFAMA while you were during your presidency?
Well, I think the task forces that were put together and the analysis and really looking at each function in terms of what does the president do. We moved it from 1 year to 2 year terms, so there would be a little more continuity. So some good management practices put in. I think we had a major push to bring, as I mentioned earlier, to bring back important members and get them involved again. We did work on setting up more chapters in the US, Canada, around the world, and some of those started participating. Particularly in Australia, they were very good on chapters. And of course, it was a transition to focus on talent, which I think was really how do we get our young academics involved. I think the case presentations were expanded, and we also started putting case studies into the format of the meetings. So we had separate panels with case studies, and I think Mary Showman kind of had led that effort. And so it was more of focus, different focus in terms of our mission of bringing out everyone together in the industry, academia, government. Those things remain, but it was adding a little different focus in terms of our youth involvement. And how do we develop the talent as we move towards 2050? So,
in your mind, what makes IFAMA unique compared to other organizations in agriculture?
Well, I think first, it's one of the rare organizations that tries to bring all of the different factions together in the industry. So agribusiness and manufacturing, farming, academia, I can't think of another organization that really tries to pull all this together and share ideas and then actually go out and try to help the agribusiness and help people have food on their plates. I think the second thing is the talent development, and then certainly the ability to provide expertise. That if and I think this is something that's in development again, the expertise that if somebody needs a specific subject and covered, they can go to IFAMA and be directed to, you know, whether it's Greg Baker at Santa Clara or whoever can bring those things to the table.
So with this year's title of being Food for the Future, what do you believe needs to change in order to be adequately feed people in the future?
Well, certainly it needs a good basic plan and direction. And I think attempts to pull the industry together have been sporadic in the past, but IFAMA certainly has a role to play there. So you start with a basic good plan, and then you get out and sell it to the various entities, whether it's the seed producers or you know, all the different farming elements, and then into manufacturing. And so it's really like IFAMA. You got to pull it together, get everyone to talk to each other and have a plan and get the thing done. Because you know, they're still predicting the growth in population in the world, and it's going to take a concerted effort to get there. And so IFAMA's got a big role to play.
What are your thoughts on how IFAMA can better bring stakeholders together to fill its missions and therefore improving the world food system?
Well, it's all in networking. It's like in your own life with friends and associates, you build a network, and IFAMA can be the base for that, getting people to talk together, plan together, and put things in place, not just talk about them, but actually help get them produced. I think we've had in the past and still some very good participants in the manufacturing side and processing, and it's a matter of pulling all of those into a total picture.
Is there any guidance for the future leadership in specific teams, like being our young board, our new young board initiative, and also with the IFAMA board as well? Do you have any words of guidance or wisdom for them?
Well, I think it's exciting that the young board has been put together, because this is the future growth of IFAMA, and while the board looks at the metrics and makes decisions, and it's going to be our young board that actually builds the network that can grow IFAMA in the future. And so I think it's tremendously exciting what you're doing with that. So that would be my word. Work together. The board needs to listen to the young board and implement recommendations. And I think both sides can guide each other, and we'll have a very impressive product at the end with both boards working together.